to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we move to public comment. Are there any public comment this evening? Okay, we can move then to the consent agenda. Any additions or corrections? Anyone care to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Joy. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. There is no correspondence. On to your report.
Great. I'm delighted to have Oswegatchie Principal Joe Macrino and staff here tonight, who I'm sure will introduce, to present on their work around restorative practice, which is kind of the next iteration of how they are working with their students, so they are as productive academically as possible by making sure their behavioral needs are being met. I know there was a version that went out. They have added some content which only enhances their great presentation, and I think you're going to learn a lot here tonight. So, hand it off to you, Mr. Macrino.
Thank you, Superintendent Jerry. Good evening, members of the Board of Education, members of the Central Office. It's a privilege to present to you what we've been working on Oswegatchie, not only this year, but the years leading up to this year. Tonight we're going to focus specifically on restorative practices at Oswegatchie, but more generally what we're doing in terms of meeting the needs of the whole child. So hopefully you'll see the connection between that. I have some amazing staff members with me tonight. Isabella Pedezwa is our school psychologist. No, you don't. Amy Garaya teaches 3rd grade. Carrie Edwards teaches 2nd grade and also is our teaching assistant principal. And Kathy McDonald teaches 4th grade. They've all attended restorative practice training this year, and they're going to share some of their experiences as we go along with the presentation. So, I'd like to start with this quote from Dr. Ross Green. He's the author of The Explosive Child Lost at School. If you have children or know a child, these are all great books to give you some background on how to handle things when they get rough. And one of his mantras that I really focus on is kids do well if they can, as opposed to kids do well when they want to. So, that being said, it's more than just semantics. We're looking through the lens of skill. At Oswegatchie School, we're really looking to be proactive and intentional and direct with our instruction. We've been on a journey over the past 4 years, leading up to this 5th year, becoming a PBIS school. Here's a brief timeline of that journey. Mr. Sachs presented last meeting on the middle school's beginning of this journey, and here's where we were and here's where we are. Via Learn, we established school-wide expectations, vehicles for data collection and data review, how we acknowledge positive behaviors in a systematic way, and systematic changes to promote those positive behaviors. In year 2, that was about teaching and reteaching expectations. Once again, the intentionality behind that, setting aside the time and as a school addressing those expectations. And then celebrating as a whole school when they've made those milestones. Year 3, they established a check-in, check-out system, so students that were having difficulty had somebody that they could check in at the beginning of the day, check out at the end of the day to make sure everything was in line, and they had somebody that they could rely on, and then looking at behaviors through a functional lens. We refer to the SEAT acronym. So the function of the behaviors are usually based upon sensory, escape, attention, or gain tangibles. So looking through that lens, we don't believe that there's such a thing as a bad kid. There are kids that make poor decisions based on the situation they're in, the context, and possibly lagging skills. Year 4, we continued Tier 2 and Tier 3 work via the behavior team. That's where we've also done a lot of work this year. So as students experience difficulty with literacy and math, we intervene. We have SRBI, and we have measures in place to make sure we can progress monitor the students to make sure that the interventions are working. Equally as important, sometimes even more important than that academic step, is establishing that they have the behavior supports in place so they can then access the academic instruction. This year has been the year of streamlining. Oswegatchie was known always as the PBIS school. We are still a PBIS school, but we're really looking under a broader umbrella, is that we're a school that embraces the needs of all children through social emotional learning. Part of that is PBIS. Part of that is just the work we do every day, but it's bigger than just PBIS. So as we enter this new age of restorative practices, we're not getting rid of anything. All the great work that's been done over the past couple of years is intact. We're just enhancing it. We're looking through the lens of lagging skills. We believe that in order to learn, students must be ready to learn, and if students struggle, we will support them through a tiered approach. Just this year, as a district, we have initiated second step lessons in all grades, zones of regulation, and now at Oswegatchie, we're pursuing the foundations of restorative practices, which I will define in just a second. Before we even got to that, we developed a mission statement this year via what was the PBIS committee, so we had something to go towards. And here's the statement that the committee came up with. At Oswegatchie School, we provide multifaceted opportunities for our students' social and emotional growth, where we foster the development of skills necessary to be positive, resilient, and productive members of our school community. So that's our roadmap. Before I get into this matrix, I just want to give you a little bit of background on restorative practices. We'll define it in a regular slide, but in another slide, but it's based upon the restorative justice movement, where it goes beyond punitive measures. There's always going to be a natural consequence, but through this lens, we give the, let's call it the victim, the opportunity to address the person that did them wrong, thereby empowering them, rather than just me as the principal coming in, making them feel guilty and say, okay, now you got to stay after school. Where does that leave the victim? It kind of leaves them out of the conversation. In the restorative part, that's the most important. We're a community. These are children. This is their first step into the real world. So as educators, we have to educate. And we really feel that restoring and educating is the way to do it. So Mrs. Pedesma is going to explain our tiered approach and how restorative practice fits into that.
Again, as Joe had mentioned, our restorative practices are a layer of the tiered approach we have of addressing social and emotional learning across all areas. So we have learning that occurs in the classrooms through some of the programs he just mentioned. We have what we provide as related service staff, what teachers are providing in the classroom every day, and then the foundations of our PBIS system, which really set the stage to add this layer of restorative practice, because they're setting expectations and a sense of community across the school that the restorative practice then can build upon and continue to build that community in helping students. So it's layers at each tier. So at tier 1, we have circles. Now these circles at tier 1 might be, so tier 1 is something that happens for all students. These are morning meetings. These are community building circles within the classroom. These are check-in circles. These are circles that a teacher notices something happened, or they're preparing for something to happen within the next couple of days. So they're going to have circles with their students to help prepare them for that. Again, it's just a step of building that community and helping children feel safe within the learning environment that helps them take risks, including academic risks.
And we're talking about physical circles, where children and adults get in a circle as a community to have a discussion.
And there's a certain level of common language that's used within the circles and different types of questioning and a routine to them. So there are different parts that are always part of circles that help with that type of routine. Once we move into tier 2, restorative practice can take on a different role in that they're still circles, but the circles may have a different focus. They may be problem-solving circles. They might be conferencing around a reoccurring thing happening within a classroom that needs to be addressed. It might be instead of a teacher and some kids in the hallway dealing with something that happened, a circle that happens within the whole community of the classroom. And then at tier 3, as the intensity of the report increases, we might have smaller circles. It may just be certain students involved and the person who's been wronged and the person who's needing to hear how their actions have affected their school community and really work with the plans to help them ongoing.
Thank you. These matrices have been distributed to staff, and this is what we're using for our tiered approach to behaviors. So what is actual restorative practices that we're talking about in the classroom? Here's the goals. We try to create a restorative, inclusive school climate rather than a punitive one. Instead of the pound of flesh, we're looking to restore relationships. There are natural consequences. There are opportunities that are taken away when they breach the contract of the community. But ultimately, the goal is to reduce isolation and get the student that had both been harmed and the harmer to get back into the community. This really comes from decreasing suspensions, expulsions, and disciplinary referrals by holding the kids accountable for their actions for repairing the harm and events. I didn't present the loads and loads of research that is showing us that suspensions ultimately don't change behaviors, and usually it's students in high need, that the repeat offenders that are constantly being told you have to leave possibly the only safe place in your life. We include the persons who have been harmed in their surrounding community, and we re-engage youth at risk of academic failure and juvenile justice systems through dialogue-driven restorative responses to school misbehavior. So here's what we've been doing. This is year 1. This is the beginning. We have work to do. By no means am I an expert on the subject, but I've read, we've attended some workshops. Recently, this was from the International Institute for Restorative Practices, IIRP.org. They're the clearinghouse. This has been distributed to all staff, and this is going to be the basis of some professional development this year. So we've sent some of our PBIS members to our Restorative Practices Professional Development. It's been great because they've got to go to some different sessions. The state puts them on through Joanne Freiberg, who's a great presenter, but then some of the staff has also been to some other workshops where they explain the dovetail between PBIS and restorative practices. And we're using these circles in classrooms to support students, and now we're in the mode of we're calling in this crew to help mediate some issues amongst students as we enter the springtime, and everybody is very excited to be outside and aggressive during sports. But what we've also distributed, and I have a card for each of you, these are the restorative questions that we are basing our conversations upon. If any of you have ever spoken to a child after they made a mistake, or possibly a spouse or friend, when you ask the question why, you're normally not going to get a very good response. I don't know. When I asked my 8-year-old, why is there spray paint on the back of the house? I don't know. So if you take a look at these, that's a true story. We're more focusing on the what. What were you thinking at this time? What was your intention when you said that to your friend?
And it isn't so, what on earth were you thinking?
It's very organic, and I don't mean that in a hippie way, but when it comes to the actual circle, there are chairs, there's no table in between, and an adult at this point leads it, and it begins with these questions. The great part about this too is, in conclusion of the restorative circle, when it gets to more of the one-to-one situation, we ask the child that was harmed, so what do you need from this person to move on? And that takes some time, and that's also a work in progress. So I think as the student, they really haven't been given that opportunity. Mm-hmm. And being the great kids that they are not looking for the pound of flesh either. So I just need you to be nicer to me. And the things that come out of these conversations are amazing. Because you get, from the other side too, you learn a lot about the other kid. You know, what were you thinking when you said this? Well, usually it has nothing to do with the other kid. I had a rough night last night. Or I haven't seen my dad in a while. And this was the one kid that I had a connection with, and I need to get their attention, they're not giving me attention. So we uncover a lot within just a couple of changing the why to what and the how. So, year 2, we have established morning meeting in our schedule for every classroom next year. So every student K through 5 at Oswegatchie will begin their day with a morning meeting, which consists of a community circle. What are your goals for the day? How can we make today better than yesterday? We have a sub at 12 o'clock. How are we going to make sure that that sub will walk into a classroom where he or she will be respected? We're going to have a 15-minute presentation to parents on back-to-school night, to begin back-to-school night, presenting these matrices and explaining the how. This is a little bit of a different approach. So it's going to take some warming up to. You get the phone call that your kid got pushed off the slide. You want to know, well, what's going to happen? We're going to explain what's going to happen, and we're going to explain how we're going to move on, and we're going to assure everybody that their child's going to be okay. We're going to increase our professional development opportunities. At this point, that means I'd like to send more teachers to restorative practice training or have somebody come to the school to provide that. And we're going to explore more literature and media during our PLC time. And now I'm going to pass it over to the people that are doing the hard work every single day, the staff of Oswegatchie. Who would like to begin?
So, as you know, I'm a second grade teacher, and Isabel and I went to a restorative practice workshop for a day, and I thought, how is this going to work with 7 and 8-year-olds? And it so happened that when Isabel and I were at the workshop, my class was not so respectful to the guest teacher, is what we call them. So I said, all right, I'm going to jump right in and I'm going to try a circle and see what happens. So we established the norms of the circle, and one student has the opportunity to speak at a time, and some of the norms are you never say somebody else's name. We don't want to be accusatory in these circles. We want to provide a path for children to be heard and also to mend relationships that they may have dependent. So we have a talking stick, and the person with the talking stick is the only person that speaks. I try to step back as much as possible. So when we started off the day, the first question, and I believe all of us carry around the questions in our badges, mine is well worn. So the first question we start off with was, what happened? And that's pretty much the only speaking that I do. And the kids will take the stick and say, I felt very frustrated for the guest teacher yesterday because she was trying her hardest to follow the lessons, and some of my classmates weren't letting her do that. And I felt like my learning for that day was taken away from me. Oh my gosh, like from 7 and 8-year-olds, how powerful does that make them? So some of the students who were the offenders were kind of sitting back and listening like, huh. And it's as if it never occurred to them that their behavior had affected everybody else in the classroom. So towards the end of the circle, after some of the students got to say their piece, one of the offenders asked to have the stick, and he said, I realized what I did yesterday, and here's my way to make it better. And I'm sorry that some of you got frustrated with me yesterday. And as a class, they were able to make a plan for the next time that they had a guest teacher. So I was not a leader, they were the leaders, and I was a facilitator, me asking some of the questions. So if you look at some of the questions, what have you thought about this? What do you think you need to do to make things right? And I think that's the biggest question is, what do you think you need to do to make it right for other people? Because just like Joe said, children want to do well when they can, and we need to help them make that path to having these communities that we've tried so hard to establish. Another example of a circle that I can tell you is one of my students was feeling extremely nervous because he had to have his tonsils removed. And he mentioned to another student, my surgery's coming up, I don't know what to expect, I'm feeling nervous. Hey, let's have a circle and let's talk about it. So this was not a restorative circle, this was a circle to help my student feel better, where other classmates said, well, they're going to put a mask on your nose and you're going to fall asleep, it's going to feel like you're asleep for 5 seconds, and then when you wake up, this is what you get to expect. The child felt very calm after hearing things from his peers, and then it enhanced the classroom environment because other students were concerned about this boy who they probably didn't know was feeling anxious, and they were able to they were able to give him words of encouragement, not just in the circle, but also throughout the day, and then checking in with him, especially on the day after surgery. They wanted to make sure that he was So 7 and 8-year-olds are being so powerful, and they're really making it happen for each other.
Thank you. Mrs. Garai?
Sure, absolutely. So we've been using responsive classrooms, and we, practice stuff. So now we are teaching children explicitly some of the tools that they need. And responsive classroom is allowing us to implement things like morning meetings. So every day they're starting off feeling like part of the community. There's always a little bit of a lack when it came to restoring behavior, restoring issues as they came up. So in repairing relationships. So restorative practice has been awesome this year. As we mentioned, some explosive students. I might have a couple. And this year it's been very beneficial. So I started to use restorative circles in our classroom. And one story I wanted to share today, which I just didn't plan for, was that one of my students who had some trouble with frustration had a hard moment. He was frustrated with something going on in the classroom, and he took his chair and he pushed it into his desk. And he works with our behavior classes down there. So he went down there to calm down and get himself into a better place. And, in the past, what we would do is make sure they're feeling like they're in a better place, and then they'd come rejoin and we'd carry on with the afternoon. However, the other students are scared when something like that happens, and their day is obviously affected. So when this child came back to join us in the afternoon, he stopped in the hallway, and I was chatting with him about how he was feeling, and he said, I don't think I can go back in there. He said, everybody's going to be mad at me, they're all going to hate me, they're all going to be scared of me. And he said to me, do you think we can have a circle? So I thought that was so empowering. So we did. And this was more student-led than I had been used to. So I started it with the questions as mentioned, and the kids really took off with it. And what's awesome is because I think a lot of these children that struggle behaviorally come to school lacking empathy. We assume everybody has empathy, but that's not the case. Kids need to be taught. If you don't care about others and their perception of you or how you're affecting them, then there's no need to repair a relationship. You can just, let's try again tomorrow. But it's been amazing to see these children really begin to care about each other and care about how they've affected somebody else and not just themselves. So the conversation and discussion was pretty amazing, and the child spoke up and on his own and said, I just want you all to know that I'm working really hard on this, and that I get frustrated very easily, and I do it at home too, and I didn't mean to scare any of you, and said all of these things that he really needed to get off his chest. And the effect it had on the other kids was incredible, because anytime somebody's honest with you like that and can open up to you, you kind of get a little glimpse inside of them. And it's been really neat to see how they've been helping him also. He said when we talked about what could we do going forward, and they got to share, I should say, how it made them feel also, although he already seemed to know that this time, which was really neat. And he said, sometimes when I'm frustrated, you guys try to help and you try to correct me, and that makes me more frustrated. He said sometimes they just need a minute. And I have seen such a change in, when he's getting frustrated, they can back off and give him a second. And there's been a definite change in his behavior as well as the other kids in the classroom, just because they're really caring about each other and feel very, and since then, they've asked for circles too to just solve some issues they have. So the repairing it does is pretty awesome in the classroom.
Thank you very much. Mrs. McDonald.
I teach fourth grade, and in fourth grade there are a lot of social issues that go on in the playground especially. And first let me say thank you for sending me to the restorative practice. I learned a lot from it. One of the most important things I learned is that in order for a student to learn, they have to feel safe. And I think a lot of times in our schools, children come to school not feeling safe, and And it really kind of feeds into what my core feeling is that you really have to have a child feel accepted in the community. And through morning meetings, I do spend a lot of time making sure children feel accepted and wanted. And I'm very happy that we also do our Second Step program because it teaches certain skills that allow students to have a voice. And one of the lessons I'm thinking of in particular is a lesson on teaching the children to be assertive. Not to be passive, not to be aggressive, and to be assertive. And I spend a lot of time with my fourth graders on that because I think that a child, if they're feeling they're not being treated correctly, they have that right to speak up and say, this is how I'm feeling. And so that kind of lends itself really nicely to restorative circles because the child is now given a voice. And I hope it makes them feel that their voice is valued and that they can do wrong and then it's okay to come back to the full feeling of being accepted again. Through restorative practice training, the teacher who was wonderful, she recommended that we watch a video called Building Bridges, and I recommend it to you as well if you want to get a feel for what restorative circles are like. It's a YouTube video. You have to type in restorative circle as well. It really is a powerful presentation about boys who do wrong. And the community is totally outraged at what happened. But through a restorative circle, they come together again, and the teenagers are allowed to accept the responsibility they've done, the wrong they've done, and the community can accept them back. And that's exactly what happens in our schools with restorative circles. I do restorative circles on a daily basis. Sometimes it's not always in a circle with children sitting on the floor with, passing our shell around. It could be as simple as 3 children outside that had a bad recess time, and as you said, I'll say to them, tell me what happened. And then I back away and I say, you talk to each other. And this is about them talking about their feelings and then talking about how that made them feel. And then I kind of interject, well, what would you do next time? Or how does that make you feel and why would you want that to be changed? So it really is, fourth grade is really nice because they can take on that responsibility of owning up to their own actions. And then at the end of it, it's like, okay, we're good. A lot of times I'll have them shake hands and then they move off and it's done. And then in a whole group situation, Mr. Macrino and I actually had a restorative circle because I needed a restorative circle. He came in and I was having a difficult time with some of my students, and we had some of my students leave, and it was really nice for him to be the leader of it. I got to be part of it, and we talked about how their actions were affecting me and how I felt about that. And it was really a cleansing kind of experience that they all were able to see from a different point of view how their actions affected me, and I got to speak about how their actions made me feel. And so it was just a really nice way of kind of closing this chapter and moving on. I'm really a big fan of restorative circle. I think they're really healing.
Thank you. So, in conclusion, I want to assure you that we're still holding the line for all of our students. It's not like, I can swipe that ice cream sandwich because Macrino's just going to give me a conversation. It's not like that. We are able to proceed in this manner because Oswegatchie has built a foundation around expectations, teaching and reteaching those expectations, natural consequences that align to the misdeeds, and then keeping the communication going with parents so they know how we're on both ends. It's the fall to the kid that got pushed and the kid that pushed as well. We're still following policy, we're not taking away anything, nor are we really adding anything substantial. It's not like a program. It's just more of an approach. It's the words that we use and the tone in which we approach it. And I'm open for any questions. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you to my staff for making the time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Questions, comments?
I just have a comment. I am so happy you're doing this because it's teaching the children at a younger age how to handle not only their emotions, but how to handle the emotions of other children. And I think that's so important because, everybody has a bad day. And I think the earlier you can teach a child, how to respect that person and try to help them, be helpful to their friends, you'll have less fights, less altercations. I think it's great. We needed some of this at work. Thank you for what you're doing. I think it's a really great life lesson.
Thank you for the opportunity.
It's just nice that the kids are able to talk things out, instead of having something happen and everyone kind of goes off and all sorts of rumors and gossip go around, but they're able to kind of just openly say, hey, here's the problem, and they can deal with it. And hopefully they can carry with them.
And this might be, great job, Scotty. This might be a question for Tom. Is restorative practice being looked at the other schools, so they wouldn't want one school to have it, and the language then getting up to Jim at the middle school, only 1/3 of the kids will have that kind of setup.
Right. I think each building is in a different place. I think each building does have some uniqueness in their different approaches. I will say all 3 elementaries have elements of restorative practices within their structure. It is certainly something, as we build school growth plans for next year and beyond, that we'll take a look at. As far as the middle school and coming into a school, working with the PBIS consultant, they really emphasize exactly what Mr. Macrino emphasized. You need to launch PBIS with fidelity and integrity before you start to kind of fine-tune it. So this would be a few years down the road in terms of formal restorative practice training for the middle school. Again, with that said...
No, I'm just saying that when Jim gets the kids,
right.
Like the kids might say, I want to go into a circle right now, and the 6th grade teacher might be saying, what?
Yeah.
So our school counselors are all familiar with the training.
Okay.
Stacy and I have conducted them. I actually conducted a restorative meeting between 2 students today, so we're all aware of it.
Yeah.
We'll probably get to a point where we'll integrate that into the language of our school. Okay, next year.
It is just
Anyone else?
How are you tracking this? So how do you know, and I think I asked this before, how are you tracking this to know if it's successful?
We use the Swiss system, which was spoken of before. That's the data collection system tied to behaviors, Mr. Jones. And we were just, the PBS meeting that we had, was it yesterday, we actually got to look at data over the course of time. And so I won't have the full data picture until we get to June, but where we stand right now, if we look at the bar graph, now I can't attribute it all to restorative practices, but I think this approach probably has helped. It's just one thing of many that we're doing. But we have seen a significant decrease, significant meaning 10 to 20 points or more, from last year's behaviors to this year's behaviors, in terms of physical aggression, and in terms of student-to-student aggression, physical and verbal. So that's just some preliminary numbers right now, but we do have objective data that shows we are moving in a more positive direction by the lower numbers of referrals based around student-to-student or student-to-adult negative interactions.
Does Swiss tie into Power School?
So they're not directly linked, but I think you've heard me mention within the context of our strategic plan and certainly built into the budget, the pursuit of a district-wide data dashboard / warehouse. All of these will filter into that. Right now it's dual entry. They don't Power School and Swiss don't necessarily talk to each other. I can tell you Swiss's reporting is far superior to that of Power School in terms of location within the building, time of day, males, females, infraction types. It's a robust system, but all of that will feed into Decision Ed, which is the name of the product.
Is Oswegatchie's discipline going through Swiss or through Power School?
The state mandated, for example, a suspension that we have to report to the state goes through both systems. It's reported in Swiss and Power School. If it's not a state mandated infraction, it's typically been Swiss.
Minor and major offenses go through Swiss, and as Tom said, if I had to do an in-school suspension or something of that nature, plus suspension, that goes into Swiss,
the infraction goes into Swiss, but the consequence then also goes into When did you start using Swiss?
This is year 2 for Oswegatchie, correct? Year 2 for the district, but Oswegatchie has used it since the inception of PBIS.
Yes.
So does every school in Waterford, all the elementaries, Clark Lane and the high school, all use Swiss for infractions, and do we track all of that in every school? Or just
elementaries are on Swiss this year, or in the process of implementing. Middle school will be piloting this spring, full launch in the fall with PBIS.
And then they'll put not just suspensions, but every infraction?
Yep.
So you'll be able to see, you can tell us in September and October, this year versus last year, if you've had 180 offenses last year, this year, now you only have 73, I would attribute that to this restorative practice set. If it's a bit of reduction, which is what you're telling us, yes?
In addition to the direct instruction of social emotional learning via second step, zones of regulation, certainly a decrease in punitive measures such as in-school suspension. And we're still following policy when we need to, but we're not just jumping to, we're going to...
So policy, you should have, in theory, you have less, because now they're going to the circle and passing the stick around, and that makes it better, right?
The proactive approach...
I mean, in a nutshell.
Yes, the proactive approach cuts off what could then snowball into a big fight on the big boy.
That's great, that's good. Kudos.
I was going to say, proactive is better than...
You make it happen. Fire prevention, right?
Yeah, because this is what we did at Waterford Country Club. Like-based interview, which is the circle, and the restoring, but that was after massive infractions, obviously. So this is so much better than nip it and teach it as a way of life.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be curious to see the numbers from Great Neck and Quaker Hill versus to you to see, you know, based on how many kids and percentages to see you should be in theory and the love if the process is working.
Mr. Discoria, Ms. Shea, and I talk constantly about how we have a unified approach to what we're dealing with in terms of behaviors. And I think it would be very similar across, but this certainly helps build those relationships within the classroom.
I have to say, I've been in Great Neck for the last week before vacation, the week after vacation, every single day, and
with the flowers wrapped.
With all sorts of things, you wouldn't. But I've seen lots of morning meetings, and this morning I took part in the pre-K morning meeting, and it was very much like that, and that was Great Neck.
Right.
Kudos.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristen. I did a great job.
Thank you.
Sure. Under other, I want to thank Great Neck for the great artwork here in the boardroom and in the hallway. I want to throw out congratulations to the high school regarding the Electric Boat Summer High School Internship Program, acronym SHIP. It's a work-based learning opportunity for high school students during the summer to enhance their knowledge of actual work experiences, to better facilitate their transition to the working world. It is an extremely competitive program. We had 6 students apply for that opportunity for this summer. 5 out of the 6 were accepted, which is fantastic. As a basis of comparison, 2 out of 6 last year were accepted, which is a great accomplishment in itself. To have 5 is fantastic. I don't know if you had anything to add to that, Mr. Hauser.
Before this year, 2 was our record, and and it is a very diverse group of students, and we're just very proud of them. It's a great sign of how well our technology education courses prepare kids to go right into the workforce, because they're essentially entering the workforce for the summer working at EP in this program.
Great. Just some district happenings. Recently, Waterford High had their World Language Honor Society induction. 25 students were inducted in that ceremony. Clark Lane had their World Language Honor Society induction ceremony. It was the second year for French, first year for Spanish honor societies. The goal, as you'll hear tonight, would be to include Latin down the road. We had 10 students this year inducted in French and 27 in Spanish, meeting the rigorous requirements of induction. So congratulations to our world language program. You might have heard me mention the Fund for Teachers program. Again, another highly competitive opportunity for teachers to apply for funding for a summer professional learning opportunity. Over 400 applicants, over 400 teachers statewide applied for these fellowship scholarships. They awarded 155 out of the 400, and 4 Waterford teachers were in that cohort. Brian Ash, social studies teacher at the high school, will be participating in an Incan archaeological dig in Ecuador and learning about that to bring that back and better enhance instruction at the high school. Also at Waterford High, Barbara Rafferty and Diane Stover will be attending NASA training for educators. I believe that's down in Florida. At Great Neck, we had special ed teacher Wendy McCabe, who will be going out to Denver, Colorado for training on practical strategies for reaching our most difficult students. So for this year, we've had 7 over the last 3 years, totaling about $35,000 over the last 3 years for our teachers. So really a great opportunity. More good news along the way. The Connecticut PTA has named their Teacher of the Year. That would be Linda Braley from Great Neck Elementary School. There's a statewide ceremony on May 2nd for that, and I know some of us are attending that. So congratulations to Linda Braley over at Great Neck. Quaker Hill recently had Grit Day. I thought it was Shrimp and Grit Day, so I went, but I knew it was Grit Day. Again, grew out of our Leadership Academy program. You're going to hear a little bit from Craig and company next month, a little overview of what those Leadership Academy projects were really focused on, perseverance, and kind of how do you stumble through that productive struggle of learning. Chris, I don't know if you had anything to add?
Yeah, no, it's just a great day, and K through 5, all the kids at the same time dropped everything and worked through some challenging problems. So
that's great. Career Day at Clark Lane there last month as well. We had a couple parent nights, elementary math parent night, and responsible use of the internet session for parents as well, and how they can help their children. Plenty of musical accomplishments across the district. A couple of announcements: Waterford Drama, Beauty and the Beast. That's next week. Next week. I was going to say first week of May, but that is next week. And then just last final announcement regarding our budget. We'll present the Board of Ed budget at the RTM on Monday, May 6th. That is a change this year. And then final action will be on Thursday, May 9th. And that concludes the superintendent's report, Mr. Chair.
Any questions for Tom? Okay, we'll move to item 5. Any committee reports from the Board of Ed? Nothing policy, any other board committees? Okay, how about from our board liaisons and representatives? Jody?
We haven't had a youth through a meeting, but they started taking applications for Camp Dash, and this year parents can register online, which should save a lot of time for everybody. So I hope, and already they have a big demand for it. Counseling is still a challenge. We still have a lot of children that need help, and also parents and even the senior citizens. And I don't know, I'm sure all of you know that the name change at Youth Service Bureau is now Youth and Family Services. So now we're able to help not only children but families, and I think that was great. I'm really happy that the RTM would take the name change. And also we might be able to get more grants because we are the Youth and Family Services rather than just Youth Services. I'm really proud of that organization. I think they do a great job.
Thank you, Jody.
You're welcome.
Okay.
The softball committee, we have the minutes in here from that, so there's some movement on that. I don't think either you or Joe want to add to that at all.
Sure. I'll throw it over to Joe for an update.
Thanks. I'm working with planning and zoning on getting the applications in before the boards. All that has to be done by the end of June, with the expectation that all RTM's voting on the site location in their August meeting, as well as final action on awarding the contract at that August meeting as well. A lot will happen in the next 3 weeks. It should be out the bid within the next 10 days. See where it goes. I mean, we don't have enough funding to do it as designed, so let's see where we land.
Thank you.
Chris. Learn the superintendent, Dr. Holly's leaving. She's retiring, so we're in the process of looking for a new superintendent. So I'm on that search committee, so hopefully by the end of May we should have a new person, and the Ocean Avenue facility has opened up and is in operation.
Great.
Thanks, Chris. Any liaison or representatives to this board have any reports or information for us?
I will say we did have a high school student lined up for tonight, but due to rainouts on baseball games, that student had other obligations tonight, so we look forward to having a rep at the May meeting.
We can move on to new business. Item A, review and possible action on the 9 through 12 English curriculum.
So tonight you'll be seeing a bunch of curriculum. We're on a 5-year curriculum cycle. With English, while the state and national standards haven't changed, you will hear tonight from our department chair, Tim Tessier, that we are doing our big work before this was to eliminate standard levels in a phased approach, to give some direct support in our English link, eliminate the 9th grade seminar because that information will be moved within that linked concept, and to give seniors a little more choice and spice and direction for their last year of English, to create a myriad of electives, one of them being a partnership with the Eugene O'Neill. So with that, Tony?
Thank you. Good evening. We're really excited about these potential changes, and as Craig kind of already gave you an overview of what I plan to discuss today with you. So, on the front. So, we were kind of fortunate that we didn't have the heavy lift of adjusting our curriculum standards. They were already there. But what we did as a department was we sat down and had a pretty deep conversation about, okay, what do our high schoolers need, what skills we need to make sure teachers they have before they leave. And so that led us to just regroup the standards and the grade level expectations just ever so slightly. And also, along the same time, of course, we're going through our NEAS accreditation. And we're working on aligning what we do with our vision as graduates. So what you see here is how we basically grouped our objectives into 5 different categories. Of course, being English teachers, we had to do them really fancy titles. But really this comes down to writing, reading, researching, using language well, and speaking and listening effectively. So once we did that, it was great because we had this template that we could use. And so each one of our documents works off of this template, but it's just, I guess you would say, like personalized based on the content and the grade level of the learner. So the key changes. Okay, sorry about that. So one of our biggest goals was to see, okay, well, we understand what skills students need to have, but how can we really get them there? These standards haven't changed, so we have to do something with our instruction. We have to do something with the way we group students. So the current practice was 3 levels. So we had standard, we had advanced, we had honors. So what ends up happening is the standard level classes would have a really high concentration of students who struggle academically, who have individualized education plans, or who have faces some behavior issues. So the management teams and the teacher are working really, really hard in one of those classrooms. There are so many kids with so many needs. So our philosophy, and we noticed that
we're really careful with our terminology, which instead of saying we're eliminating or reducing, what we're doing is we're leveling up. Okay, so we are combining the standard and advanced level. This will really allow us to have a classroom that's more diverse in terms of gender, in terms of ability, and so that the students who struggle can get that help in the classroom by the teacher. They're not pulled in 15 different directions in a class with a lot of struggling learners. And so we feel like that, you know, the students who come from Park Lane, they're very used to heterogeneous grouping. So our ninth graders will come, they really won't know anything different, except we'll have an honors track, which will be a little bit more fast-paced. It will, you know, there'll be the expectation that this is gearing kids towards AP, and there's an expectation you're going to do a lot of reading and writing on your own time. For the grade 9, which is still offered at the advanced level in terms of, you know, weighting, we will be maintaining the rigor that we always have in the advanced level. But the students who struggle will have the benefit of peers who can provide mentoring and support. But being realistic, we realize that for some kids who struggle, who are maybe below grade level as readers, or who just need a little bit more pre-teaching and a little bit of re-teaching, really what they need is time. So we are borrowing the great idea of the math department who has developed the math link. We are going to be offering an English link that will run parallel. And the way it will work is kind of cool. Math link will be first half of the block 5 days. English link will be second half of 5 days. And so kids may take one, they may take both. It's on the quarter, it's based on teacher recommendation, it's fluid. You can move in and out of it. I think what math finds is kids are told, like, you can leave, you can exit link, and they often say, no, I really am appreciating the support, I want to stay.
Is link sort of an extra help?
Link is extra help. It is a credit. And so what it will be is pre-teaching, which really works. If you struggle, you're not really sure of the concept, and you have a teacher who teaches you how to summarize, and then you go into class and everyone's going to summarize, but like it's reinforcement for you because you learned it with the link teacher, it makes you so much more confident and able to grasp the material in the class.
I'm sorry. I don't understand link. I'm lost.
So link is a support class. It's a class that students are recommended to. So, all right, so realistically, students who would have taken 9 standards, we no longer offer 9 standards. The Clark Lane staff, the 8th grade language arts teachers, have recommended students who they believe will need some additional support will start the year with a half block of study hall. But what's really nice about it is a 9th grader at the end of the day doesn't always make the most excellent time of their study hall time. So this is really time to get your English reading and writing work, but with some help and with some guidance and with support.
Is it a credit?
It is a credit. Yeah. So it's like...
Is it taking the place of the study hall or taking the place of part of the English class?
The study hall.
In addition to
the English class. So it's an additional support. Now, to me, I don't know if this answers your question.
So let me just kind of frame with math and success. So with Algebra 1, they have a teacher for Algebra 1, or an AB block. She does math every other day. 2 years ago, they created the link. So then there's a different teacher in that link class that knows the Algebra 1 scope and sequence. But as Tony says, it's pre-teaching, it's reinforcing, it's a different teacher, so sometimes you might be stuck hearing the same thing from one teacher, so they have a different teacher kind of saying the same thing. And that reinforcement, we found, and Andre in the math chair was pleasantly surprised that we did it just for the standard level kids, and they were out-achieving the advanced level kids.
And is the link opposite that block schedule? So if on Monday they're doing algebra, the opposite day on the block they're doing the link. Is that correct?
That's how it was for math, and I think that's the goal.
It's the goal, but realistically, they may have. All right, so there's pluses and minuses. So
The benefit.
So, hold on, I'm sorry. Are you doing Link now, or are you proposing to do Link?
English is a proposal. I wanted to
do it. I got it.
kind of give you the baseline of the success in math.
But it only takes the place of a study hall. It doesn't take the place of math or English.
It doesn't take the place of a graduation requirement.
Right.
So when we say for credit, it
you
is
get credit for math or for English?
It is on top of the graduation requirements.
Yes, it doesn't cover
Okay, so
English requirements. It's like extra.
Okay.
A little bit of
and it's when we say for credit, it's a partial credit.
Okay.
So in order to accommodate that, because the students are taking Link for math and Link for English, these are kids who maybe struggle a bit in math and English, and so we didn't want to rob them of their opportunities to take electives and things that they might be really interested in. That's not a good thing. So what we've done is we're saying goodbye to seminar, this is our 21st year teaching seminar. But it will allow the time and student schedule for the English Link. And because the students who will be 9th graders next year will be the first students who will be required to do a capstone project, what we anticipate is seminars are going away, it's sort of being repackaged, it's likely to be a semester class that they will take as juniors, which they will, some of the key content will move there, or to the new grade 9 wellness and class that they're going to be taking. We do a lot with bullying and ethics, so I'm not going to lose that. But what we will make sure is that those really key research, reading and writing components will be addressed right away by all the grade 9 classes and grade 9 honors classes, so kids don't lose that piece. And being able to do it all at the same time at the beginning of the year will actually work out a little better in some ways. But this is the part that I was really excited to tell you about. We obviously recognize that when students get to select the class that they want to take, it really promotes their interest. So what we've done for the senior classes is we have gone to, with AP would still be a full year class, but for the other students, they will take 2 senior electives. I've got to stop myself from saying electives. It's not a choice. They need to take 2 senior classes in order to fulfill their graduation requirements. And we came up with 11. And this is actually an intense process. We came up with ideas. We surveyed the students. Some of the ideas we really liked, they didn't so much. So we kind of went with what we thought would benefit them, but what they would be interested in. We came up with 11 courses, and I'm happy to say that we're offering 10. So we did a pretty good job of offering enough of a variety that kids were excited, and students are really excited about these. And even the concept within most of the classes is choice within the class as well. So for example, contemporary bestsellers, that is supposed to be designed for a class for kids who love to read and kids who still don't know what they love to read, and really exploring all the different genres and books that are out there. You can probably guess what some of the more popular electives are going to be that we're going to be offering a lot of sections of, but we know it could change from year to year. But this year we're going to be offering several sections of crime, real and imagined, and sports literature. But kids are really great, and they sign up for competition for college and other classes as well.
Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt you. How many courses were you offering before this?
So we only had grade 11 standard, grade 12 standard, grade 12 advanced, and grade honors.
So our pass was English 9, 10, 11, and 12.
But this is
and the only differentiation is the level.
Yep. But when you are you offering all of these, or just the ones that the most kids sign up for?
We were able to run 10, and I will tell you, the numbers were kind of low for women in literature. They were a little bit low for diverse voices, so we decided to do for next year to offer diverse voices, because we figured that can kind of serve kids who would be interested, and the kids knew that. Yeah. So no one signed up for a class and then was told, oh, we're not going to be able to offer that. We kind of...
What's your limit?
What's our limit?
For the number of kids signed up.
I don't know that we have a for the how many the most.
Like half No, the smallest.
Right.
Before you get rid of the class.
Yeah, so
You
again,
need to have
right.
with,
classified.
with the high school, with the high school is, over 12 is a full teaching period.
12.
And then 12 and under is in lieu of a duty period. So we're able to offer undersubscribed courses because teachers aren't doing the duty, they're doing an undersubscribed class.
Right, but even the ones that are doing it on a regular deal, they could have a class with as low as 12 kids.
Well, some of our AP classes are like that too, so we kind of had to make what's the break even when we made the undersubscribed opportunities.
Yeah, and I want you to keep in mind something too, like we really tried our best. Again, we surveyed the kids 2 times to make sure that we were going to offer classes that we knew we could fill at least 1 or 2 sections of. But, whereas the 9th graders coming in have been missing everything is okay, and it really won't be that different for them. But please keep in mind that the current 11th graders who have taken 11 standards have probably took 9 standards, 10 standards, and 11 standards. We have a particularly challenging group of seniors this year who many of them have IEPs and have significant learning issues. So we're appreciative, but we do the class sizes are going to be smaller in some cases next year, but I feel like because it's the first year that these kids will have leveled up in English and they're seniors and we're sending them off to college, we are very appreciative that we can have smaller numbers to work with.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I am totally in favor of lower class sizes if we can afford it. Yeah. Unfortunately, in the elementary schools, as I said, I was just in a free-paying special needs classroom. 20 children, 23-year-olds. You talk about challenges. You haven't seen challenges with 12 students with a few behavioral problems until you see 23-year-olds with, and more than half of them having special needs and IEPs, and 1 teacher and a lot of parents, but it's not the same.
How many juniors in the building?
220.
My point was that we can't have one standard here and another standard here. We need to keep that standard throughout the system, and I don't care if we're going to tax the taxpayers all the way, but they're not going to go for it. So we have to even it out somewhere.
Well, and you said like what is the lowest, but also some of the sections are up there. Some of the sections are up there.
What's up there?
25.
Okay.
This year we've run a couple of sections, many sections in our department that we have 26 students in the class, and we had to bring it down.
So just respectfully, I'm just going to ask the department chair to talk around the curriculum, and if the board wants to entertain discussion questions, I would just respectfully ask to maybe to put that more towards an administrator, just because I think they would better.
And I just want you to understand.
Tell me about where the classics. Where the exposure goes to.
So
where is that?
Well, keep in mind that we still follow the Common Core curriculum, which means that we will have pieces that are pre-20th century, 18th and 19th century pieces. There are some classes here that really heavily will address the classics. So, for example, the hero's journey. For example, the literature of the sea will have some of the classics. But all of the classes, regardless of what semester they're offered or what class they have, will have some pieces of classic literature that are not modern. And I should have mentioned too that each class will also have a significant research piece. They will, regardless of what kids take based on their interests, that will not prevent them from having the opportunity to write and to research and to read challenging texts. We want to serve 2 purposes. We want them to be lifelong readers, so we want to turn them on to something that they will read as an adult, but we also want to make sure they're ready for the rigors of college reading.
My response to that would be that I think that when you limit a category of literature that you're going to read, sex, like diversity, needlessly eliminates other literature. We can certainly include literature by women, literature by diverse people, but not at the expense of, it has to be a value judgment. Which is the better literature? Which is more important that the student learn in order to become fully versed in the history of our culture?
Right, we don't want to lose that piece, but again, we're sort of going more towards, this replicates what you might select as a college student. These offerings, we did extensive research of what area high schools are offering in terms of senior electives. We're kind of on par with that. You keep in mind, kids have had 3 years of that. They've had Shakespeare. They've had a lot of discussions around what is good literature. But we also have to be realistic. We want to make sure that while we incorporate those pieces, and we're still talking about what makes something a really great piece of literature, we also talk about what you enjoy reading, what you like to read, and having both of those texts for kids to talk about.
This model is not dissimilar to what the board did with social studies probably 2 years ago, in that, okay, every student's going to take, and I'm speaking off the top of my head, and Craig has a deeper knowledge on this, so every student might take U.S. history. But as they get into the upper years and we expanded elective offerings, they might do a deep dive on the presidents of the 20th century, for example. So there's that baseline exposure in English 9, 10, and 11, and then the deep dive in grade 12, and that's very similar to the model in social studies.
Yeah, we broke up world history into basically 6 semesters and require kids to take 4 semesters. And so instead of just world history 1 and 2, they could kind of go deeper into Greece and Rome or to the other parts of European history.
So most of these choices that we have here are mirror what other high schools are offering, or were they done as a popularity thing?
I think a lot of high schools have moved to this. Some high schools even do juniors and seniors do electives. We didn't want to do that because our grade 11 curriculum is really dear to us, and it's the American literature piece. We didn't want to break that up. But we did feel like we wanted to, the excitement of the kids of getting to select what they take for English learning is they've had to take English learning. The excitement is really exciting. And I should mention, a couple of kids signed up for more than 2 classes because they couldn't decide between them, and they loved English, and they just wanted to take 1 extra class, even though they know it's like taking 2 English classes at the same time. They were willing to do that. So I think that we were pretty excited about that.
And that's the key that we found with social studies. Like, so maybe kids would take 5 or 6 electives, and that's the same with some of our science semester opportunities. Mm-hmm. So the goal would be for students that may not need a study hall, could they take extra courses, and by offering these types of elective or semester opportunities, we're really able to give them a broader scope of education during the high school years.
The book lists for all the categories, are they staying the same every year? Do they change? And who picked this list again?
So
I missed that.
The English teachers collaborated. So in following our policy, if we want to have something run into curriculum, that three people in the department have to read it and comment on it. So, if you look at the list of, let's say, the literature of war, that's really not possible to all cover in one So we do, again, so we have resources. It will be, we'll have the resources where we can personalize to the kids in the room, but also, as I said, within that, probably a lot of the way the process will work is there'll be some shared text that everyone teach, and not just like it is practice where everybody's listening to the example of 3 literature of the sea. This is the standard by which we're going to measure everything else. But then, what are you interested in? And so the next study might be literature circle, where kids, several kids work in small groups and they've all read the same text and they discuss it. And ultimately getting to, picking a book, independent book that you're really interested in. So we hope by having all of these vetted, really strong tests that we have plenty of opportunities and impact for students to select based on their interest and the reading level of the, in the brain.
Does Moby Dick appear in some other course?
Moby Dick is part of our grade 11 curriculum. Yeah. Teachers often will do excerpts. I think we are moving that to literature this week, even though we might do an excerpt of it in 11th grade, that's okay.
It's hard to see the factual background for Moby Dick.
Yeah. And we're hoping, too, that that could really lend itself to really great partnerships with the community and some opportunities to get out and do some field trips with all of the rich history we have of the sea in the area. So one other thing to mention, other than these electives, we have one new elective that's open for juniors and seniors, and that's introduction to philosophy. I'm going to take a little bit of time, I believe on the next slide, to focus a little bit on playwriting and performing, which is not that we're all excited about all of these electives, but there's something a little bit special about that. So thanks to Tom and Pat, who have been reaching, I don't know if Jamil reached out to you or you reached out to them or vice versa, but we've been cultivating this really great relationship with the Eugene O'Neill Theater. And playwriting and performing is probably going to draw the type of kid who is so interested in playwriting, performing, and can hardly believe that people actually can do that for a living. It's so great. Then they can go to the Eugene O'Neill, where the staff and their people who come in from New York City, their
resident artists.
Yeah, their resident artists come and will be working with students all different aspects of playwriting and staging and performing. We can go to them, they're willing to come to us. But then students will get that experience of, hey, there are actually people who do this for a living, and there are all these careers, and this place is right around the corner, and many people don't even know all the amazing things that happen there. So we're starting slowly to build that, and so what we will be doing is having students work with the theater professionals for 10 hours in that semester course next year. So it's really exciting.
So English 12 has completely gone away, but AP and Honors English Day?
AP and Honors are the same thing.
And that's a full year course?
It's a full year course. So we will be restored back to our normal plan, which is that the 11 AP is an AP class. And the 12 AP is an AP class, but it's also an ECE class.
Okay.
Students can earn ECE credit for that.
How will the other English classes be rated?
And at the event level.
Yeah. That's a what?
At the event level.
And as Joy mentioned, in your binder is the book list, and the Board of Ed would adopt any new books that we would be adding to this in the future if we had to, because that's a curricular resource. And behind Craig Merriman, there are all the books that we're going to be talking tonight. If board members wanted to take and review those before final adoption on the curriculum material at the next meeting.
I just have to say I'm disappointed in the women in literature. Just a couple books. I know Handmaid's Tale is really long and difficult to follow, but I'd like to see more like social justice and climate change and things that would maybe not, that would get them excited, but in a different sense. I mean, did you talk about that at all, or?
You mean within a different course offerings?
Yeah, in any of these categories, right? So, because obviously the literature of the sea, there's a couple instances there.
Right.
But
that's not the only
fishing sustainability
and used for women in literature.
No,
you needed those in addition to what you already have.
What we currently have. So what we did, I should say, is that was interesting. lively conversation where when you took the grade 12 books that obviously you still want to use them, we divvy them up.
Right.
So what you see is just new books, but we have so many books, quite honestly, we haven't been able to get to that we're just allocating to the different electives. Yeah.
These are only the new ones.
These are new ones.
Okay.
That's new. Yeah,
okay.
And also too, like we have to be realistic that there's some extra long classes. So it will be short stories, it will be essays, it will be excerpts. It's not realistic to expect that you can do 5 novels in a semester. Some people because they have to take other classes.
Is there thought of any collaboration with other subject matter? Like if they had a science book, could the science teacher participate in it and read what they're writing and really assess whether they understand it or anything like that? Was there any talk about that?
I think there will. I know that the person teaching the literature will be collaborating with Michael Connor, and that they'll probably do some really cool projects together. But the true collaboration among different disciplines is going to happen in that capstone class, which the students will take in 11th grade, and that's really we want to work out something that the students are selecting an advisor in an area in which they're interested, whether it be tech ed or science or math. And so we work with them so that they have a content area specialist, but then somebody who can help them with the writing and the research piece of the textbook and the presentation.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
I was really impressed with your course offerings. I think you could reach so many children with so many different topics. And it'll give them, and it'll make them enjoy reading. I know the classics are important, and I had to read them in school too. But I'm thinking of one of my children in particular, and he just hated reading. But if he had the choice of reading some of these, he wants them to be lifelong readers. So I'm very impressed with some of the topics, and I think the kids are going to love it.
So thank you very much.
Great.
More for Tom, I guess. Is this the first time that we're going to roll the standard kids into advanced?
Yeah, Craig will have background on that. Yeah, I mean, we're certainly not first to the table for a high school to eliminate standard level. I do think it's something that we'll look to continue to do as we revise other curriculums. You can probably give a little bit more background on standard level.
Yeah, so we began to do that in math this year. So in Algebra 1, they're all taking it at the advanced level with the link, with that extra support. Math is undergoing a curricular review at the high school that has started with a parent survey now, and we'll be doing some summer work and all next year. High school social studies will also be under a curriculum review next year, and one of the goals would be this collapsing of the standard level. And basically, that really then will require all high school teachers to what does differentiation look in the classroom a little more explicitly. That happens in every elementary classroom just because it has to, and that will be a focus of next year's school growth plans to kind of get that movement, which will require professional development so that it's successfully done.
What's the impetus for that?
What is the impetus for that?
Yeah.
So
instead of keeping the way it has been for years, why are we now changing it?
Yeah. So euphemistically, we say it's the standard level, but really it's the below standard level in Waterford, where the advanced level is where we expect all kids. And so if we really want to make sure that all kids come out with a level playing field, then we really need to have students exposed at a higher standard than the current one, that lower level, and maybe give them more time to learn.
Well, that may benefit them, but what about the more qualified students?
So
the more gifted and talented students. What's the data on that? What's the impact on that?
So the goal would not to be to decrease the rigor in the classroom. The goal would be to maintain the vigor of the advanced level and provide additional support for the students that need it. I mean, that's essentially how we teach K through 8, and then we get to the high school level and we parse out by level. The disadvantage of a standard level class is it's basically a homogeneous class where those students don't necessarily always get the benefit of hearing the thinking of a higher level student and that modeling that occurs.
So the rewarding of the precocious student would maybe be that they wouldn't have to go to like this linked class. They could use their time for other things. So if you think about in college, sometimes you have the whole group lecture and then you have lab courses, and so it's akin to like everyone will get the basics and then some might need some more time.
It's also worth noting that there's no discussion of getting rid of our honors level. So for those students who really are advanced in a subject area and want to be pushed beyond that grade level expectation, there's always that honors track, and as they get older, that advanced placement and ECE track. So we're not leaving the high flyers behind. We will always have a way to challenge them and push them to their capacity.
That's kind of why I asked that, because my concern would be, when your kids come home and say that they had some standard level kids or what you refer to as standard level, the teacher spent half the class trying to get the behavioral problem under control, and now, not that it's an everyday occurrence, but are you affecting kids that are in the advanced class that are bordering on being able to go to honors and things like that to have that kind of ripple effect?
So it's the reactive mode, or as you heard earlier tonight in the Aswagachi presentation, is the proactive mode by if we give a different environment, if we have fewer kids like that in a classroom that are seeing different models and have clear expectations with these supports so that they feel that they can contribute in the classroom, do we get a different result? So that's where we're trying to go to.
And the results we've seen from math this year in Algebra 1 are that with that new model, that's the result we're getting. So we're very hopeful for the change. I think it's going to be a net positive for all of our students.
Right, because you can address the learning, if someone has some learning challenges with like the link, you kind of get them there, but then you still have these other
questions.
I just want to say, I think moving out of standards is a great idea. I like that completely, because I think once kids get tracked into that, they're stuck, and then no future getting out of it. And exposing them to something more advanced is wonderful, and giving them the support of that link, now that I understand exactly what the link is really a good idea. I am wholeheartedly behind that.
Thank you. We're taking it really seriously, and I should have said too, we went to a high school called Pontiac in Rhode Island that has recently consolidated their level to work with them. But League of Innovative Schools is helping my department meet with some other schools that have recently done this as well, so we can learn some strategies of what to do and learn from their mistakes and what not to do. Because we do absolutely intend to maintain the rigor, but we feel like this will be best for all students.
I was going to say, are you going to be mindful of class sizes in that case? I'd just be concerned about that. And one of my children went standard all the way through, and she's an extremely successful radiographer and did great in college and had a great education on the standard path. She did a great job and makes a ton of money. So
that's sort of more of an administrative.
I know it's probably an anomaly, but
No, the question about class sizes. When Tony and I met recently after we had gotten the course request in, we had a lengthy discussion about which are the classes where we want to really be mindful of class size, and which are the classes where we know that a larger class size is going to be successful as well. And there's a lot of discussion and balancing to make sure we're setting kids up into groupings that are going to be most successful for them.
The nice thing too is we have so many sections of the grade 9 that we can move kids around if we need to make it more balanced, or to separate kids from students in the class together. When you only run 2 or 3 sections at a standard level, it can be really challenging to do that and make it even.
Is the board ready to take up the question of whether or not to approve this curriculum? Someone want to make a motion?
I move that we approve the English language arts curriculum revision as presented.
And that's your 9 through 12.
9 through 12.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tom.
16, additional textbook instructional materials, notification to support the 9 through 12 English curriculum.
So that was the book list in the cover I had mentioned, and so again, those instructional materials behind Craig Merriman, and if you have any questions after reviewing it, but they go along with the courses, and as Tony mentioned, have been vetted according to our policy.
And that'll be on our agenda for the next meeting for approval. So C, review the PK through 12 music curriculum.
Thank you. So with the pre-K to 12 music curriculum, you notice for the first curriculum we now include pre-K. Our music teachers will be working in the pre-K classroom. The standards that are in this curriculum are new for music. They are the same standards that was in the art curriculum. So our department head, Tim Fiervati, will be explaining how they've aligned to those new standards. They've added some new offerings in elementary and middle school with respect to jazz. Talked about pre-K. There's a new offering at the middle school, ukulele, which you saw how that was emerging from Shaker Hill. And at the high school level, there's sort of a jazz through line of a jazz improv. So without further ado.
Good evening. So the interesting thing about the new curriculum and the new standards and the old curriculum and the old standards is that we were challenged 5 years ago by Mr. Powers to take the old standards, which were brought to us in 1994, and we had to put them in the Understanding by Design framework. And if you know what that is, we had to come up with enduring understanding, essential questions, things like top down. What do we want the kids to know, and then how are we going to get there? So we took the 1994 standards, and it didn't work well with the Understanding by Design, but we made it work. And our last curriculum, we thought we did a really great job. To the point where our new curriculum, when we started writing it, we brought an expert in the new standards from Darien, Rick Tadlin, and he had helped the Norwalk Public Schools, the Darien Public Schools, and I think he was also working with Fairfield. So before he came, he said, "Send me your old curriculum." So I sent him the old curriculum, and he said back to me, he said, "It's a shame you actually have to go to the new standards because your old curriculum pretty much aligns well with them already." Wow. So whatever job you did last time, thank you, Mr. Powers, for making us do that, they align now. So when we got the new standards, they were already packed with enduring understandings and essential questions and all that. So all we had to do was just kind of do what we were doing and make it work within the new framework and the new verbiage of what was going on. So, like the old standards were a lot of skills and knowledge. What can you do? Can you play a major scale? Do you know what a B-flat major scale, the notes in a B-flat major scale? So it was a lot of performance, a lot of skill-based things. And the new ones, the understanding of what you're doing, why do we make you learn scales, kind of thing. I mean, I'm being basic with all that. The independence, like what do you need to do now as a performer or a music critic to now go to the next level? So we're trying to give them all kinds of information and tools, like English, the tools to then go to the next level. And then the big thing with us, anyway, has been literacy. You know, you can't just read and play a piece of music. Do you understand what you're playing? Do you understand how it fits in with everything else is going? So we've been doing this, and the new standards actually make it a big part of what they want, which is great. We love that. So the creative, performing, and responding was the three sections, and you'll see a lot of that in the areas in the standards. And then the connecting part of it is how do what we're doing connect to other arts, our daily life, to the community, and all of those other things that are involved in that. So, they like Common Core state standards. They narrowed down the number and make us go now deeper into it, which has been working for us for the past. I mean, we've been doing it for the past 5 years, and now we get they actually have better verbiage than we do, which was good. So now we get to dig deeper into what we're doing. So we're not just taking a piece. Like tomorrow, I have the jazz band performing at our jazz festival, and we've been doing 3 pieces. So it's not that now we can perform those 3 pieces. The students now know why we're performing those 3 pieces. What do we do in the context of those 3 pieces? What are we trying to get across to those 3 pieces? So there's all kinds of things involved, just not performing and you listening and going, oh, that's great. So more depth into what we're doing. Unless we're going to play a bunch of things, now we're going to focus on what we're doing to learn more about them. The pre-K, we already talked about. We added a grade 5 jazz band, and this is extracurricular. So kids meet, I think they met from 5 to 6 o'clock. Megan Nelson, our new elementary band director, started a 5th grade jazz band this year, and all 3 schools could participate. And there were about 30 kids in it, and it was quite, if you went to the concert, it was quite amazing.
What Oswegatchie?
Yeah, it was at Oswegatchie.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, she's quite amazing. And it also helps that the jazz layout that she has, she had a little help in that, which was from her husband, who's in the Coast Guard band, and he's in the Dixieland band. And to be in the Dixieland band, you have to be a phenomenal jazz player. And he also graduated from North Texas State University as a master's degree student. And if you know anything about North Texas State, it is the jazz school in the world to go to. So back in the day, I don't know if you know Buddy Rich and those bands that. So that's where he would stop to pick up the 2 players, and then they would go. So Sean assisted Megan in this whole job, which is great. Clark Lane started a jazz band again. Thank you, Mr. Robach. So they'll be performing tomorrow at 1:05 at our jazz festival, and that is also extracurricular. At Clark Lane, with the new design of the elective program, we found that we had interest in the ukulele program. So not only at our elementary schools are we doing it, but some of the magnet schools where the kids are coming back to us, they have been doing ukulele there. So there's that much interest. So the jazz improvisation course I had taught years ago, up to probably 5 or 6 years ago, when interest had waned a little bit and the numbers were low. So I added a music appreciation class. I figured, well, let me substitute it with something that a lot of kids want to do. So a bunch of kids signing up for my music appreciation class, which is a music history class, basically. They learn rock and roll, jazz, classical music. Now we have more interest in jazz and jazz improvisation. It is the essence, and if you look at the standards, the things they want you to do more than anything, and on Bloom's taxonomy, right, the top thing is creating. If you have students creating things, that's the highest level of learning that you can have. Well, that's, for us, jazz improvisation and composing is at the top of the Bloom's taxonomy for us. So to be able to get this course back in, it is phenomenal. And it's alternating with music theory. So what I'm going to do is next year offer jazz improvisation, and then the following year not offer it, but offer music theory. So the kids that aren't doing jazz still are able to get a music theory class in before they leave Waterford High. And we'll go back and forth. So, there's that. The next steps you might be involved in is We're continuing to increase the ensemble enrollment in all of our grades. And the numbers we have for the high school next year are up. Middle schools, we have to buy more chairs and stands. It's great. So your help would be to help us maintain that, and as it grows, help us let it grow, basically. We've had a 65%, and that's an average increase in the elementary school ensemble enrollment.
Is that
within the past that's an average of all three.
Okay.
So
Here or
over the last 5 years, 5 or 6 years. Yeah, it's huge. And if you've been to a concert lately, you'll see how huge it is. Yeah, it's quite. I'm excited. I'm very excited because I'll eventually see all that. So, and the other thing is we're trying to get back into technology as a part of it, art. And unless the art and technology are the same thing, it's kind of hard to mesh them. But we want to be able to use more electronic assessment. So I haven't been using it yet, but the elementary and middle school have been using a program called Seesaw, where the students play to their computer and the computer grades it and then sends it to Mr. Robarge, and then he doesn't have to sit there in class and listen to each kid individually. It's kind of like homework that he can just check off, and yeah, it's been great. So as they come up to me, I'm going to have to learn how to use it. The other thing is that's interesting is, and in our new standards that we weren't able to find from last time, is to be able to preserve their performance of something that they play into the computer. So now, when they play something for us in 4th grade, we can hold on to it for them to hear when they're in 12th grade. Want to hear what you were like as a 4th grader? And so we were able to do that. And then the other thing is we want to promote, we had this discussion, it's pretty funny, promote responsible use of technology. So one of the things Mr. Robarge and I talked about were having the ability to use technology responsibly, of course, but then in the world of technology be able to do that too. So we need to teach them, if they comment on a YouTube performance, we want them to sound educated. We don't want them to sound like a knucklehead. So we want them to be able to express what they want to express in this responsible use of technology. So that's another thing we're looking at doing, and that's all.
So you will notice in the curriculum we did do on pages like 12 and 13 a curriculum map to kind of show the highlight, and that was something that the department came up with. Thank you, Aaron, and really embraced, and I think that format is nice and will serve us well in other curriculum. And you'll also note that because of the increased ensembles, we are going to phase in a support for some instruments so that students can have access, and that's their, if you will, new textbook request that's in your inside cover. Okay?
Thank you. Any questions from the board, comments?
This ensemble increase, is it being kind of balanced, or is it leaning more one way or the other?
Well, right now, so within the past 3 or 4 years, we have new faculty members coming in, and they're stellar. So, of course, we're going to get more kids drawn to them. We stole, I don't know if you know our new elementary strings person, we stole somebody's Teacher of the Year. So now, there's a reason that he was Teacher of the Year. I mean, he's like the Pied Piper of it. So this is what we're able to do now that we have all of that happening at the elementary school. Now we have Mr. Robarge going at the middle school. We have Ms. Mazzarelli, who built the string program to where it is now at the elementary school. She's at the middle school. It's going to grow from there to the high school, so it's on the right track, and I'm very excited about it.
Marching band?
No. No. Although I did, if you want to know, I actually did have the discussion with some of my students and I just laid out, you would know, I laid out what the rehearsal expectations were when I had one, and they said, oh, no. Never mind, moving on, and then we moved on. So.
But the nice thing is, we've got a lot more students playing instruments than ever before. And because of that, you know, we might have to fund a few more instruments, but it shows the vibrant health of a comprehensive education system, which the arts are imperative.
And music, it's not just an art, it also fosters intelligence. 100%. When you can read music, when you can do all that sort of stuff, I am totally competent in music, but my children, especially my oldest, thoroughly enjoyed it, and is a lifelong musician, as Mr. Joe here with his ukulele. I think it's wonderful, and it really does enhance the combination of the children as they grow.
Great job.
Yes.
Tim, did I miss marching band, or is there no more marching band? Can you explain to me?
We have not. The fall of 2006 was the last year that we had marching band.
Holy moly!
And
didn't you see Beyonce's Homecoming?
So it was mostly due to, you know, when I first started here, kids had different things going on in their lives. Now there's so many things going on, there's no way to do it. So I had this conversation with Joe's father years ago, and I said, you know, it's not that the kids didn't love doing it, they did, they just couldn't find time for it. So the question was...
changing into athletics gear, running from one rehearsal to another. I remember those competitions they had on the weekend.
So his father summed it up quite beautifully. He said, I want to keep something just for nostalgia's sake. Right? If you're gonna not do it, and then we're gonna get even more students involved in the music programs, that's pretty much a no-brainer. So that's what we're doing. And then the other thing is, as a board who deals with budgets, if at some point you want to discuss with me what it costs to run a marching band like that, it's quite extensive. You don't want to know.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I know you are. Because you were there as well.
Yes.
Ready for a motion? All right. I would like to move that the Waterford Board of Education approves and adopts the new curriculum for grades pre-K through 12 as presented.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And
I would also like...
for having the foresight of knowing what the curriculum is going to be like. I mean,
Go figure.
I'd also like to thank all the members of our music department who are here tonight.
Again, item D will be on for final approval at our next meeting, but do any board members have any questions or comments about that right now?
That was inside, so it's the instruments?
It's really just
And those are considered instructional materials, those are construction.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Those
what...
wouldn't be considered under regular...
Well, they could be considered under equipment, but, you know, when we're seeing such a need, I'm basically parsing it out by saying, this is the instructional material this curriculum will need, and this will be a phased-in approach.
Because this is an expensive list, right?
It is, and that's what I'm saying.
I know what a tuba costs.
A phased-in approach.
That's only one thing.
This is what they're going to need over time, and so we're approving the concept, and we will fund it as we can.
Under textbooks. For that department.
If I may, at this moment, we have all of our instruments looked at. A lot of the ones that aren't being used now are with repairmen to be looked at and to see what we can keep, what we can now use for parts. So we're flushing the whole system out, and we're going to actually get a really good grip on that this summer to then determine what we're close to it, but there are some things that are...
Did you get any new instruments with the FF&E for the new school?
We did not.
You did, okay. whole 100 instruments with our SSD.
They got a ton of cabinetry and accessories like that, but because we really didn't outfit the new instruments, I felt let's take a first bite of the apple during new textbook, and if we need to incorporate into future equipment funding through the Board of Ed lines, we will. But
and at that time, we really weren't looking at what we're facing now. It was kind of we had what we needed. You know, we just needed a place to store them and other things to do that. But now with the increase in the last 5 years, this is what we're looking at.
Okay, we have a new math course proposed for us, titled Mathematics and Music, Exploring the Connections.
Yeah, so Marcia couldn't have teed this up any better by saying that music is everywhere. Dan Seltzer, a member of our math department, came up with a concept about why don't could we have a course between math and music. I said, well, where do you see this type of course? And you really see this topic addressed at the collegiate level. It's atypical for a high school. And so I said, well, really then, how is this going to work? And there was many iterations on really refining it to say, here's the math, and we're explaining the math through the model of music. And we got to a point where I feel very comfortable and very supportive of this course. One sticking point for me is I didn't want it to usurp a graduation requirement, and so we had a prereq that they have to take Algebra 1 and Algebra Geometry, and they could be currently enrolled in Algebra 2, or they could take it after Algebra 2. So this course is in addition to the normal high school graduation requirements for math, for students who may want to go deeper into mathematical understanding, but maybe has no interest in, say, calculus.
Full year, half year.
This is a semester course, it's half year. So with that, Dan Seltzer.
Thank you. So thanks for letting me come present. I first want to thank Mr. GR, Mr. Powers, and Mr. Hauser. They've been very supportive and encouraging. My math department chair also, and even Mr. Piramonte and the other music teachers at the high school. I've constantly been running ideas by them, and we're going to get a lot more of that next year as the course gets underway. My initial idea for this course goes back a long way. I've been teaching math for a long time, but I've also played trombone on the side a little bit. And when I was at the middle school, I used to do a lot of lessons that overlap with math with a lot of subjects. I mean, I could do a course, maybe not me particularly, but someone could on math and art, or math and architecture. I mean, there's all kinds of avenues you can go with math. When I got switched to high school a few years ago, the idea occurred to me I could maybe put together a semester course. It wouldn't be the first time. And I kind of put that in the back of my head, and so I was at a workshop a couple of years ago, and the head speaker talked about a course he taught in math and music. He was a professor up in Holy Cross in Massachusetts, where I happened to go to school, but he wasn't there when I was there, and he gave about a 20-minute talk, a big overview of stuff, and he had written a textbook for this course. So I waited a couple of years until I could afford the textbook. I found a used copy and checked it out, and basically it grew from there. You know, I talked to people, I put together some ideas for topics, and there's been a lot of work in the interim, a lot of research by me. There aren't a lot of courses out there like this. There's a few colleges that have this going on. I didn't find any high school stuff online, although, to be fair, you can check every single high school out there, but it's not to say there's not students learning about the overlap between math and music, but I thought it might be a nice idea to try to make it a little more official. You know, that we have a lot of math courses kids have to take. There's a few that they don't have to take, and to be honest, most people take those few because they need the credit, because they didn't get through the other ones. And I wanted to kind of do a course that was really about taking it for the course itself and getting a credit, kind of in addition to that. expectation is this will be a math course first and foremost. The math in it is not simple. It's not just, like fractions, count beats, etc. That's certainly part of it. And there are some things you can look at that are pretty esoteric, but I don't necessarily think I'll get to those either. This is still just a high school class. But I'm always looking for different avenues to get kids excited about math. Not an easy thing to do all the time. My guess is most kids that sign up for this will already have some experience in music. That's not a requirement for this class. I think it's important for you to understand I'm not a musician, I'm not a professional musician. It's just something that I'm interested in, it's fun for me. And I do think there's a lot of overlap that makes the math more interesting, but also makes the music more interesting.
So this is a clip of a resource that we'll be recommending for a possible video clips that he could use throughout it. Go ahead.
The rich and central nature of music seems at odds with the logical and absolute character of math, but in fact they're fundamentally linked in unexpected and enlightening ways. Hi, I'm Ed Leon for the Great Courses. How music and mathematics relate is a fascinating new perspective on the relationship between these great achievements of American culture. It's taught by award-winning mathematician and musician David Cummings, who uses his violin to explain the mathematical foundations of music, even if you have no expertise in either field.
There's mathematics that your ear is doing when you're listening to virtually anything. When you go and hear music, you'll hear that differently because of the things we learned in the course.
You'll learn about the construction of scales, mind-body and auditory illusions, and the mathematical roots of musical harmony, which dates back to ancient times. You'll see how math influenced music making via frequencies, melodies, and rhythm. And you'll study a range of musical instruments, the physics of string and wind instruments, why pianos are never completely in tune, and modern technology behind today's recorded music.
Very brief overview of one resource I would probably be drawing from. But I could probably say everything you heard in there somewhere in the course. But there's certainly the other things. So my goal would be to get students to think critically, but also come to better appreciations of math and music. I mean, it's pretty simple. Two things that I really love and think are amazing. Coming together to try to share that with students. It's really not any more than that. Really all I have to say. I mean, unless you want to talk details at all, but I don't know what documents you have, or I certainly haven't memorized that whole list. So.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a question.
Yeah, first of all, I looked at it and said, who's going to take this course? And then I read your actual curriculum. Man, what a beautiful course this is. Really cool stuff. And really rigorous stuff. My question was it in the course request for next year already?
Yeah,
so did you have students sign up for it?
Yeah, I don't know the number.
As a standard format, we always say when a curriculum
I know
comes
that.
to the board, pending board approval,
right,
so that we can get
you can get started.
Subscribed.
So what do we have for numbers?
I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but it was enough to run a section.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Great. I think it's great. All kids love music. They don't all love math necessarily, but if there's a way to get a kid who's like, that sounds interesting. I know I have a couple of my kids that don't do great in math, but I think they would take this if they could dovetail the two together.
Yeah.
And it lends itself to a lot of other things and a lot of other areas that I think it's
This, like I was going to mention before, like even something like recording or music production, just because a lot of the software, they call it DAWs, the digital audio workstations, are pretty cheap. You get them, and pretty easy to use, and I think kids might be interested in something like that.
I had the opportunity, Dan did a presentation at the STEM night, and I had an opportunity to preview this a little bit, and one of my takeaways was how rigorous the math was going to be.
He's not going to not make it rigorous, trust me. He's got several kids. We've already had this for a teacher.
I haven't been telling the kids that,
It's really rigorous.
No, that was important in the development, that we wanted to be a math course where music was infused versus a music course where we...
I thought you were going to be teaching.
formalize our enthusiasm for this new course by a motion?
I'll be happy to. I would move that, because I don't have a cheat sheet, that the Waterford Board of Education approves the Waterford High School course in math and music, exploring the connections as presented.
Thank you, Madam. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
No, one opposed.
I just said. I'm sorry. I apologize. Again, the textbooks, unless you have any questions, we'll refer that to next meeting. Let's review possible action on
Yeah, so I know we're just doing a textbook approval next, but I coupled it next to math because,
okay.
Yeah.
I missed that. Thank you. Any comments before we move on to H?
I think there's a presentation associated with G, even though it's just a textbook adoption. We did want to.
Another presentation.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I know we have 5 presentations tonight, which is abnormal, but we've done a lot of work this year. So the next one is really Clark Lane has been under a school-wide pilot using a new math resource. Using their existing curriculum, which is why you don't see a curriculum adoption. But I have our math instructional coach, Rob Salino, who is going to go over the process that we came to decide on illustrative math, and then what's the power in that instructional resource married to the great teaching and to the great curriculum. And what we're getting now is we're getting, I think, dramatic enhancement in our learning of math. So, Bob?
Thank you, and Board, thank you for letting me come and present this, and I will try to be brief. I know we've had a lot of presentations today. So, I'm going to talk briefly about the Illustrated Mathematics program, which is a program that Mr. Clark has been piloting at this past year. So our process of how we came about this was we began in the late winter, maybe early winter of 2017, and we looked at a total of 6 programs, and you can see them all listed there. Every one of the programs that we looked at, I took time to do some research on them. I investigated if there was any schools in the area that were using them, and we tried to learn as much as we can about this program. So we had some of the teachers were able to pilot some of these in their classroom. All the teachers did the connected math as well. We thought that was one of the stronger ones going in. So we had all the teachers piloted at least one unit from connected math. And then some teachers, various strata throughout. I was able to work with all the programs, either doing mini lessons or sample lessons within classrooms with after-school groups that I was running. So I tried to branch out into all of the, all these programs. And one that we decided to work to pilot this year was the Illustrated Mathematics program. This one was the one that we decided on was highest rated by EdReport. So EdReport is just it's an independent nonprofit, and their whole goal is to just look at instructional materials for students. And they wanted to decide which are the best ones. So they had different levels in which they rated on. You can see there's focusing coherence, the rigor in the mathematical practices, and then the user rateability. You can see these scores here are all for the Illustrated Mathematics program. You can see it scored almost perfect in all categories. That's the usability rating. So that's what we decided to go with. So what this program is what they call it's a problem-solving based curriculum or problem-based curriculum. And the design is to have the students do the heavy lifting instead of the teachers. So we're accustomed to the traditional approach where the teacher gets up and teaches, and then we're going to try some stuff as a group, and then I'm going to go off on my own and I'm going to do that. This program is actually the exact opposite, and where the student will attempt to work on their own initially. They'll get together within their groups, they'll share ideas, they'll work together to solve the problems, meaningful problems. And then the teacher will get together at the end to orchestrate a discussion and then to decide to learn that should have taken place. Of course, this doesn't work with every type of lesson that we do. There's some things that we do need to direct instruction on, but this is the overall focus of this program. What the teachers will be looking at throughout a typical lesson, you'll see the teachers do what we call the 5 practice for orchestrating discourse. And so what that is the teacher will first anticipate where they think the misconception is going to lie, what types of responses they're going to get from their students. So they're going to monitor the students as they're working. They're going to select which students' work that they want to share with the class. We can sequence it in an order that goes from a more concrete understanding to a more abstract understanding. And finally, they're going to then make those connections for the students at the end. So, one of the nice things about this program is that every lesson, every program, every unit, and the whole program itself is all designed the same way. It starts with an invitation to learning. So every lesson will have a warm-up, or every unit will start with a lesson that is an invitation into the learning that's going to happen in that unit. And the whole program starts off with the first unit, which is more of an invitation into learning. And it's not a traditional approach in the sense that the first unit for all the grade levels is geometry. And usually that's not something you think of much later on in most, but it's that one that's really able to grab the student's attention. So there's that. Then it goes into the deep dive, which is the heavy lifting, with the students working, the teacher making connections, and then a synthesis at the end where we kind of tie it all together. So every unit, every lesson, the entire program is all set up that way, so there's consistency throughout.
You're going to see each of these three parts into three video clips, brief video clips.
Right. So this first one here, so this would be one of the components of the lesson. The first component would be the warm-up. This is just an invitation to learn. So this is the 7th grade classroom. And what you'll see here is you'll see I will introduce the task. You'll see the students working independently and then working together. So the work that the students are going to do. The work that the students are going to be doing here is actually a skill, it's a refresher of a skill that they've had in 6th grade. So this particular warm-up. So here the students are just working on their own. You can see that they're already kind of parting it up. And the teacher has done some thoughtful staring at how the students are going to pair up. And now they're getting together and they're sharing their ideas, their understanding of. You can just have a little exchange right there, how the student had a misunderstanding with talking to the other student next to him. He's able to make that correction for himself. And that's basically, in the simplest form, what a warm-up is. It's a quick 5 to 10 minutes, and it's just an invitation into the learning that's going to happen for that day. So this particular skill here, they were working with negative numbers and plumbers, and so this lesson is getting them into a more formal understanding of that. The second part of this is what we call the deep dive into learning. So there's kind of two main parts that go into this. And the first part is after the teacher initiates the activity, explain to the students what they're going to be working on. They're going to start. They're going to work on this and title a little bit, and then they're going to get together in groups. And then what they're trying to do is they're trying to solve whatever the problem may be. So the first part of the lesson, we have the students working together. They're interacting. They're sharing ideas. They're comparing notes. The teacher's walking around. They're able to facilitate discussions within the group. They're able to clear up any misunderstandings that some students may have. So really confirm that the students are working on a very one-to-one or small group basis. And the second part of the activity would be to kind of share out, to sort of, what do the students understand? So for this particular one, they were doing dividing and fractions. So this is a 6th grade class in Delia's room. And what this first student is doing here is they're dividing 3.5 by, I think, 2 1/4 or something. So he showed visually how he was able to solve it. And you can see very concretely he's breaking these up into parts. And Mr. Gill is trying to help, facilitate the understanding and explaining. Okay, so in this division problem, and next you're going to see. So now we talked about the numbers. So he talks about how some of the students have seen the number status on this, and now this other student's coming up and she's showing a more algorithmic, more formal understanding of the same problem. Here's where the teacher kind of started sort of tying that learning together, tying what the first student did to what the second student did and how those connect. And then finally, the end of the lesson is what we call the synthesis and the tying all together. This is where you would traditionally see your more direct case here, we have Mr. G&A's 8th grade class, and they've been working on some initial work and leading them up to the Pythagorean theorem. So he's just synthesizing the work that they did for that day. As you can hear, it's still very much the students are still participating, it's not just the teacher just talking to the students, but he's asking thoughtful, purposeful questions. Oh, yes, my challenge.
Okay, outside of the box, right? We want the triangle to be y, y2, y2, and then we want our y2, and y2 being the y, right? And once we have to do those triangles, Lucy? Yeah, we added those all together, 4 multiplied, 4 times 5, gave us 20, and then subtract, we got an area of 29.
So in terms of assessment homework, every unit starts, it has a pre-test that's available to the teachers to use a diagnostic, and there's 12 tests for all the units. Longer units have the unit assessments, and then all lessons have practice problems for every lesson that goes on, and those can be assigned for homework or for in-class work. I should mention that all the lessons have notes that the teacher can refer to for students with ELL or students with learning disabilities, and suggestions for them to use. The program is designed to help bring those students in because it is a problem solving, because it is real world problems, because it fosters the cooperative learning as well. But there are resources like that for the teachers to have as well.
And I will say that Rob has been instrumental in bringing this program to understanding for all the teachers this year while we're piloting it through his use of professional development. Before a new unit comes up, he works with their team time and then a little release time to prep the team with what are all the new opportunities and components within the lesson, so that there's a high coherence of delivery across the grade level. So it's a credit to the instructional coach. So this is just the textbook approval or notification of the different math workbooks that, again, are at that back table. If there's any questions now, we'll take action next meeting.
We don't have time to look through them?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, you have them on action in the next meeting.
Oh, okay. Do we all have copies? Because I do read these things. I need to
if board members,
put my hands on it.
Yeah, if board members would like more copies, we will have them hurried to you. Just let Caroline know. I just let one set out there, but you all have access to full review.
I'd like a copy, please.
How many of these books are you going to buy? Roughly.
Yeah, so believe it or not, there's how many per grade?
9
books.
So yeah, 9 books.
Per grade, times the 3 grades. Now it's interesting, because this is open source.
So like I'm looking at 6th, 7th, and 8th. So 6th grade, there's 8 more of these books?
For different topics.
Okay.
Per kid, right?
Yes, and because it's open source, it only costs us for copy. And I priced it from national photocopying companies, what we could do, and what the prices that they have just to bind it. And the prices that they have to bind it beat the national copier price, even though they said they could beat anybody's price, and it's cheaper than for us to photocopy it. So it's really just the price of the reproducible, which is at a good deal, because this was Bill and Melinda Gates and other trust fund enterprises, so the intellectual property rights are open and free.
Is it consumable every year?
It is consumable every year.
Considered a workbook.
So each grade has 8 more of these, roughly?
Yes.
Per child.
And you'll recall during the budget process that there was a sizable tick up at Clark Lane with respect to their instructional supply materials for this purpose.
But that will be every year then?
That will be every year. It's interesting to note, because I wouldn't have predicted this, middle school kids find workbooks like a unique thing, so they love it, which is maybe contrary to our thought on such a material, because it was everywhere when we were there. It is kind of like a foreign concept to kids these days.
I'm sorry, if I could add on that, with this program now, this curriculum has been picked up by now Kendall Hunt, McGraw Hill, Open Up Resources, who we got from, and Learn Brilliant. So there's one, they've obviously seen the benefits of it, but there could be some other movements pricing-wise, because now there's going to be more competition in this. Go ahead, Chris, with this program.
So these books that you'll copy, 88880.
They come copy for.
They'll come copy. It's in addition to, and it's supplementing the current math curriculum. Is that correct?
So it is the resource, it is the only resource that we're using to convey our math curriculum. So Rob did a one-on-one analysis of all the Common Core standards, all of our current curriculum, mapped it out to this resource, and it's all there. Sequence slightly different, but it's all there, which is why I'm not bringing a new curriculum in front of the board. I'm just bringing the best instructional resource out there, as noted by Ed Reports and as advocated by the Math State Consultant for Connecticut, who can't officially endorse a material, but really keeps pointing us to Ed's site and keeps referencing visually this resource.
That's my next question. So you think, or you feel, in your opinion, obviously, this is going to help us increase the math scores, because that's where I'm going.
That is where I'm putting my
right. The Ed site says, as we all know, I'm not being a Debbie Downer, that the math scores are not in a great place. So this is you feel this is going to help that?
I do, and because we've piloted this whole year so far, I'm seeing telltale signs through our math assessment that we are seeing gains.
So where are the other eight books if we wanted to see the books?
So I will have Fred forward that to every board member who wants to see the full comprehensive set.
And just so we get the price down, we're not paying for any other real resources.
We are not.
We're going to use this as our major.
But it's still $12,000 a year.
But it's still $12,000 a year.
Yeah.
But if that's going, I personally like it a lot, and I think it's going to really teach the kids a little bit of inquiry and all of that, and working out those problems.
Right.
Instead of sitting in front of Hobie Jackson and Khan Academy and all that.
I know. So they're going to get copies.
They're going to get those books.
He price out photocopying those,
or binding it, or whatever.
Or buying their.
This is cheaper this way.
You could not copy them for what they can sell them to.
Got it. Okay. So I guess I my choice. I would be curious to see all of these books, just to see.
Okay.
I guess.
Just let Caroline know, and
I mean, I'm happy to come here if you can let me know when they'll be here.
We'll get Fred just to, so we have 4 people?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Will they get through all of those books?
That was my question.
That is the goal, yes.
Well, I'm piloting it. How are you doing? Is the pacing going okay?
In piloting it, it has been slower than we had hoped,
Yeah.
of course. But as we've worked through this book now, these first years, we realize now there's lessons that we can combine, say, there's some lessons that, we might plan a full day for where the students are able to grasp the concept very quickly. And that maybe could have been one we could have just, presented, or we could have combined it with another one.
Right. In addition, 2 or 3 days. When we started, it was brand new.
Right.
And everyone was going through it very methodically.
Right.
And so I think we've lost some time in the fall. So we had to make some mid-course adjustments on some curricular compacting of these books to get them ready for SBAC, which is now underway. We think that next year, since we'll have this experience under our belt, we'd be able to accomplish this.
The teachers will be used, I mean, it really asks the teacher to teach in a different way. This idea of let the kids struggle right off the bat, and then we're going to talk about it, is a foreign concept. Because usually you stand there, this is how you solve it, go practice, let me know if you have questions. That's a gross simplification. But it's really asking the teacher to really teach differently. So year 2,
and that's why I can't understate the power of the instructional coach to really get the teachers ready for this and to have the degree of success in implementation we had during this pilot year.
Those of you who attended the elected officials course saw this in action.
Is this considered a flipped classroom technique?
No. In a flipped classroom, students would be expected to go home and get some content on their own, come back and maybe apply that content in the classroom. With this approach, the student is still getting that core content here at school by the teacher. But we're asking them to try it on their own first and see what they can come up with, see if they can figure it out.
It's like modification.
More than one way to get to the solution.
Right.
I like the idea too of the kids working in teams because they help each other out.
Yeah.
And they look at like sometimes we don't agree, but it's good hearing other sides of the story. So I think that's good.
Well, to draw a link to the high school curriculum, you get different levels of thinkers in a group discussing versus if it was a homogenous group.
Right.
And the teachers have been very approachable in how they educate. So for every unit, they pre-test, they fairly consistent. So the students are almost going to have knowing that we're getting a new unit, all right, we're moving our feet, we're up where we're going now.
That's great.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
H, possible action on the new 6-12 World Language Curriculum.
Thank you. So, last but not least, we have our department chair, Amanda Marquis, who will, as you remember last year, we came up with the concept of a 6th grade exploratory. So this is our first year in implementing it. So a trimester of French, a trimester of Spanish, a trimester of Latin. The World Language Department is tweaking that, and then because the Latin was the unknown commodity, we did not write Latin grade 7 or Latin grade 8, and so that's the work that Amanda was going to present tonight.
So, like Craig said, we're in our first year of the exploratory 6th grade language program, so kids are in their now 3rd trimester of a different language. We've gotten great positive feedback from both students and parents. And our curriculum teachers have gone through the 6th grade curriculum that we wrote and was approved last year and have made some edits or revisions based on their experience this year. So they've really taken a look at how much can we do in a trimester, what are the most important things to kind of draw those kids into the language, and what can be moved around, put off a little bit, and they've really come to see what maybe the differences are in the languages, where something may work in Spanish and French, but maybe a little bit different in Latin, and trying to make the most authentic experience for the kids, for the languages. So that's what is different from last year. What's new is our 7th and 8th grade Latin curricula. So what we basically did is the same thing we do with Spanish and French. We took the level 1 from the high school and broke it up into 2 years. So we have grade 7 Latin 1 part 1, grade 8 Latin 1 part 2. So after 2 years of middle school Latin, they will have had the equivalent of level 1 high school Latin. Another thing that was changed a little bit was we kept our world language standards as they were for the level 1, but changed the English language arts standards, we used the 2, and made them the more appropriate 7th and 8th grade standards in comparison to the 9th grade. And then Nick Giori, our middle school Latin teacher, has done extensive research and piloting for resources for this year, so he has decided that the book Ecce Romani from Pearson, the level 1, is the most appealing and appropriate for middle school Latin. And I took a look through, it has great little pictures and stories and kind of follows a modern but still authentic approach to Latin. And it also, surprisingly enough, has an online component, so it's getting kind of more like Spanish and French.
Great.
Yeah. And that's
And that resource is at your table. We're looking for approval of the curriculum only tonight, not the resource.
And would it be good to have you're also getting a Latin teacher?
He's Spanish and Latin.
That's
Which is
amazing.
insane. Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So you can do Spanish. And what was his last name? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was just we wrote the curriculum before we had the teacher. We were really scared for a while.
If we build this, they will come.
So did you run Latin this year?
Yes.
Exploratory.
And how many kids? No, there's 3, right? But you haven't run the
Not 7th and 8th grade.
Okay.
Next year will be the first year, 7th grade, and then 8th grade. Yeah.
All right. Would you like a motion?
If there's no other questions?
I would like to move that the Waterford Board of Education approves and adopts the world language curriculum for grade 6 through 12 as presented.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. As mentioned, the curriculum will be on or the books rather, will be on the agenda for next meeting. So now we can move to the tuition agreement with Norwich. Tom.
Sure. Very similar comments to last month where I brought Basra before you. The Norwich Board of Education approved Waterford High as a designated high school. Their chair and superintendent have signed the agreement. It is word for word like the Basra agreement with the exception of the number of seats. So Norwich in the agreement is offered 10 seats per year for no more than 40 students at Waterford High at any one time. And it would be a similar phasing. So next fall would see 10 freshmen, then 10 sophomore and freshmen, and so on until whatnot. Obviously, they're only billed for the seats that they fill. They're already running buses down this way to New London High or to Marine Science, so it's a natural fit. I can tell you I've already received calls from some folks with questions, so there seems to be...
So it's already out there for them, right?
It is. It was on Channel 8. It was in both papers, the Bulletin and the Day. So, I mean, it's all the same details. They pay special ed and 504 costs. There's no responsibility for those on our end, nor transportation on our end. If there were more than 10 interested, it would be run by lottery. So it mirrors the Basra agreement.
Any questions? Okay, then a motion to approve, please. Jody?
I'd like to make a motion that the Waterford Board of Education approves the tuition agreement with the Norwich Public Schools as presented and authorizes the board chair and superintendent to sign said agreement.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Nice job, Tom.
Team effort. We had Kathy and Craig and Andre and myself, Allison Mosier.
That's a great...
So how many teams now?
So Basra and Norwich, Franklin has approved. They've just not signed the agreement yet, but their Board of Ed has approved.
Any others?
We presented to Sprague, and they've not taken any action as of yet.
Okay, the graduation date for 2019 and the revised 2018-19 school year calendar.
Pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, by this time, snow and inclement weather is over. So we had 2 inclement weather days that would push high school graduation to Friday, June 14th. It keeps the number of school days intact at 181 for students. So fairly straightforward. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? You need to approve it? Second, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved unanimously.
Side note, Clark Lane would be on the Thursday night, the 13th, just at this point.
need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Even in my country, that happened last year.
1 year back.
Oh, wow.
Welcome, everybody.
Yeah.